Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the BlackBrazilToday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. The material I want to cover today is a video by Black Brazilian man that I saw on Instagram. Now, the origins of this article today is based on a scene that he posted on Instagram maybe a few days ago. And I've talked about this a lot over the years. In terms of Brazil's media, Black Brazilians have always been, more or less kind of invisible in Brazil's media. It's always been dominated by, majority white casts, majority white leading men, leading women. And that applied to, the film industry, the television industry. You had theater. I'm going to say in the last decade or so, I mean, Black theater in Brazil has existed for a long time, but it's like I know a lot of Black Brazilian actors and actresses were taking, Black themes to the stage. It was like they were being blocked or made invisible on television and in Brazilian film. So they says, okay, we're going to take Black culture and our story to the stage. But I've seen over the last 5 years or so that there have been some improvements in terms of Black storylines, larger Black cast, Black directors, etc. A lot of Afro-Brazilian directors are getting some shine in the Brazilian film industry. There have been a number of advances. There was this recent novella that just it broke records for its ratings and how many advertisers were, putting ads during the show's airing. It's been one of the top novellas on Brazil's top network, Global. And it's a first for a novella that has a majority Black cast. But, before this slow increase of Black representation on the big and small screen, Black Brazilians look to productions coming out of the United States. All while I was in Sao Paulo, I noticed how big productions starring or created by African Americans, Black Brazilians look to the United States for this representation that they just weren't getting in their own country. So this article that I did some years ago, 2015, Media for the Diaspora, International Black Television Images Fill the Void Left by Lack of Black Representation in Brazilian Media. So these are just some of the shows that were popular in Brazil. For many years, you could turn on the television and see this in syndication. You had the Fresh Prince of Bel-Aire, which they renamed as Maluco no Pedaço, which means like a crazy man up in the piece. You had Everybody Hates Chris, which was a direct translation, Todo Mundo Odeia o Chris. You had That's So Raven, what they translated as As Visões da Raven or Raven. Then you had My Wife and Kids, which they translated as Eu, a Patroa e as Crianças. Okay. So these were big shows in Brazil, particularly these two right here, Fresh Prince and Everybody Hates Chris. You could see these programs on TV every day in Brazil, right? They kind of substituted. They couldn't get Black Brazilian representation, so they kind of lived through the television series that were coming out of the United States featuring primarily Black cast. Okay. Later, independent producers would start going to the streaming platform to create their own type of sitcoms, like this one right here, Casa da Vó. It was being compared to Everybody Hates Chris. The guy who put together this program and got the funding for it was, I believe he's from Angola. And he says, well, you have to do for self. And that's what he said. He had difficulty even raising money to put his program on, to get support for his program. He had to get funding from overseas because it was still like Brazilian investors and the media still don't believe that people will watch primarily black programs in Brazil. So he had to go overseas to try to raise funds for this idea that he had. So again, the Fresh Prince series is something that's really big in Brazil. Again, it was for television. It's called Maluco no Pedaço, which you see here. Maluco no Pedaço. Of course, you know Will and what's his name? They called him Carlton. Was it what's his name? Ribeiro. I forget his first name, but Maluco no Pedaço. So, you know, Fresh Prince was a huge show in Brazil. The other thing I want to point out is that in recent years, there's been this image of the middle class, young Black Brazilian woman who has perhaps more, you know, buying power than a lot of her mother, her aunt, her grandmothers might have had back in the day. And they kind of model this type of Afro-Brazilian woman. They're trying to change the image of Black Brazilian women to move them away from just being stereotyped as poor. You know, they belong in the kitchen, right? So similar to the Black American princess, you know, the BAP, Black Brazilian women have taken to calling themselves what they call what is it, Patricinha Preta or Preta Patricinha, saying that this is a Black girl, uh, you know, kind of middle class status. She dresses very modern. You know, she, even if she doesn't have a whole lot of buying power, she dresses the part. And, you know, I became aware of this term some years ago, and now there's another one that they call Afro-Pachi. Patricia, what we say in English, they say Patricia in Portuguese. And Patricia becomes Patty, which they pronounce as Pachi. So then you get Afro-Pachi. And the Patricinha in Brazil is kind of like the the uptown girl, the valley girl. You know, they're represented by like the women who played in that film Clueless. So this Afro-Pachi or Preta Patricinha, this term has been modeled after a couple of characters, like the character that Stacey Dash played in the Clueless film, as well as Hillary Banks. Of course, you all remember Hillary Banks, the character on the Fresh Prince show. They looked at her and they kind of modeled this Afro-Pachi image after somebody like Hillary Banks, or what did I say? Stacey Dash, who appeared in the Clueless film. Okay. Let me see. What else do I want to cover about this? So the Fresh Prince show, being highly influential in Brazil, you know, like I said, everybody tuned into it, you know, regardless of color, but obviously Black Brazilians really connected to, you know, a series depicting, you know, upper middle class life of a Black family in the Bel-Aire region in California. Um, Fresh Prince came out in the early 90s, and it was really like Will Smith's first foray into acting. And, you know, everybody expected Will Smith to be a really good comic actor just because of some of the things that he would do in his music videos and some of the topics of some of the lyrics in his rap songs, right? But there were some episodes on The Fresh Prince that really showed how Will Smith was able to adapt. He was able to, you know, stretch uh, his ability as an actor. And I'm sure many of you who watched that program will remember the episode. I think it was Ben Vereen who played his father. And I guess his father was out of his life for a number of years, and he came back into his life. And the Will character was looking forward to repairing this relationship with his father. And then his father, at the end of that episode, he dipped on him again. You know, it was a very powerful moment, you know, Will asking his Uncle Phil, like, how come he doesn't want me? You know, and the emotion that came out of Will Smith, it just showed that, you know, he's come a long way as an actor. So this Black Brazilian guy actually posted, you know, obviously that scene is from over 30 years ago. Well, I don't remember what year that particular episode came out, but somewhere between, I don't know, 25 and 33 years ago, somewhere in there. And this Black Brazilian man reacted to the video. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what he said. So this today's video, this is called Black Brazilian Man Reacts to Fresh Prince Scene in which Will's father abandons him again. So let's get right into this. Okay, so this is the Black Brazilian man that I wanted to talk about today. This was a piece that he put up maybe a few days ago. His Instagram page is, I don't know, Sai Afrogito. It says Hinato Gama. I think I'm familiar with this guy. I think I used to, I don't know. I think I remember him from Facebook or somewhere. I'm gonna have to look that up again. But so he's the author of today's reaction to the scene, to that pivotal scene in that Fresh Prince episode. So let me get into exactly what he said. There were no comments on this, so I'm just going to read his his post, verbatim for what was written there. So he says, this scene touches me in a personal place, and unfortunately, it also makes up our reality as well as Black fathers who take responsibility for their offspring. Unfortunately, there has been a serious problem whose form of racism manifests itself through a mixture of personal resentment, white academicism, which results in censorship of Black fatherhood. Now, just so you know, as I said, American productions are huge across the world, and I really saw that in Brazil. You see American television programs, American reality shows. You see like 8 out of 10, films showing in a Brazilian movie theater are going to be American films. Usually, when you would watch American television series on Brazilian television, they would do overdubs. There's a whole industry of voiceover actors in Brazil who would do the Portuguese version of the English script. So even though, from the video that I saw, there were subtitles on here and you just heard them speaking in the English that's on the original program. But when you watched Maluco no Pedaço, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Aire show in Brazil, they had voice overdubs. But in this particular video that I found off of Instagram, they had the Portuguese subtitles going here. So this is breaking down the scene between, I think it was Ben Vereen who played Will's father in this scene. The problem is not that you have reasons to problematize Black fatherhood. The problem is that you feel uncomfortable making propositional and demystified posts about this topic, mainly to avoid upsetting a relative or friend who doesn't have the maturity to come across your positive post on this topic that is as important as motherhood. It's as if in my own bubble, I'm afraid to criticize the mistakes and even crimes within this context of Black fatherhood. Out of fear of being harassed by brothers who don't think it's cool for me to consider things. I want them to F off. Who's paying for my son's diapers and treatment? F it. I'm a Black man who doesn't even have my father's name on my birth certificate or ID card. I come from a time when it was still common for agencies and institutions to insist that I put my father's name on forms because they couldn't get it through their heads that my mother had deprived me of this right, this information. In other words, we can immediately conclude that it is possible to have paternal abandonment with maternal co-responsibility, but that's another matter. Listen to what he's saying here. He said his mother deprived him of the right, to put his father's name on forms. So I see, without, knowing the whole story of what this man is talking about, it just reminds me that it's become public knowledge as of late where people who knew Tupac Shakur said that his mother didn't, or she kind of lied about Tupac's real father. And so I guess he went to the grave not knowing or something to that degree, because I remember seeing a guy who said that Tupac was really kind of upset that his mother had played him that way in terms of the paternity of his father. So this is kind of what I'm getting here, like a situation that you find oftentimes where the mother has some animosity versus against the father or something, and she takes this animosity out on how the child is growing up. Sometimes they stop the father from being able to see the kid. The kid grows up knowing only his mother's version of why his father is not around. And sometimes it's just not the case. Fathers will come back later on in life and be like, That's not the reason I wasn't there. That's what your mother told you. Now let me tell you my side of the story. This almost seems like what this guy is saying in this particular paragraph. So moving on. The point is that if I were to dwell on personal resentment, I would never write about Black fatherhood because despite my late grandfather and uncles, I have no idea what it's like to have this experience. However, just like in this video, it takes maturity to go beyond. And in our case, given our dismal position as a people, this becomes imperative. And just like Will Smith, I too have taken on the life mission of being the full and whole father that I didn't have. You're going to see me talking about this topic all week because you're talking a lot of ish, using psychological and personal issues to generalize and censor a topic that is essential to the emancipation of our people, such as motherhood itself, the economy, childhood, etc. So I'm wondering if this guy posted this, if he made this post because it was so close to Father's Day. As I said, Father's Day in Brazil was just like a little over a week ago. And so, this another thing that a lot of Americans may not know. You won't notice unless you've visited on the other countries how powerful American media is around the world. Brazil has its own media as well, very powerful media outlets in Brazil, but they use a lot of American productions, and some of these sitcoms and films and TV series, they have a lasting influence. It's something that people think a lot about because they connect to the characters. So I just wanted to share this piece that this brother shared. He shared his thoughts, how he connected. This scene between Will and his father is something that I can kind of identify with, even though my story is not exactly similar to Will Smith's, but there's something there that I can definitely relate to as well myself. So anyway, what did you think about this post? Drop a comment in the comment section. Feel free to share this video, like this video. Subscribe to this channel if you've seen more than a few videos that you liked, and definitely, smash that notification bell so that you'll be one of the first people to get new videos as I post them. And with that said, I'm gonna close this video here and ask you all to come and check out the next video.